Greenwich Village, New York City, March 1st, 1976. Weekly news and culture newspaper The Village Voice publishes a sensational article titled "Sane Citizen Sees UFO in New Jersey." The author is New York resident Bud Hopkins.
Bud Hopkins was not a ufologist. He was an artist. His fascination with UFOs began when a neighbor, a local businessman named George Obarski, told him about a strange sighting that he had where a craft descended from the sky and landed in a nearby field. Hopkins writes about this in The Village Voice, and at the end of the article, he invites people to share any similar experiences they might have had, and he's inundated with hundreds of responses and is deeply impacted by that response.
The public response to the Village Voice article was beyond anything Bud Hopkins could have imagined. As hundreds of UFO witnesses shared their stories over the following weeks, Hopkins was compelled to dedicate much more of his time to researching the subject. And what he began to find is that many experiencers not only saw strange objects in the sky, but also claimed to have been abducted by aliens.
Bud Hopkins started to collect evidence, and he started to have meetings of experiencers in his apartment in New York where they could gather together to speak with one another. He was outstanding as an investigator, as a researcher.
My father liked bringing people together. He liked the idea of people helping each other, because that's what in his mind this was all about, was just trying to get to the bottom of the truth and help people and figure out what it was that happened to them.
Bud had the courage, had the guts to take on what was happening to people who said they knew that these strange lights in the sky were connected to when something entered their bedroom at night.
Peter Robbins, a fellow New York artist, was one of the experiencers who reached out to Hopkins.
I called him, told him that I had had a sighting when I was a kid, and my sister had an experience. Bud invited me over for coffee and talked about UFOs and the time when my sister and I had our sighting.
Peter's encounter occurred in 1961, when he was just 14 years old.
One afternoon, my sister and I were in the front of the house that we grew up in playing, and I caught something out of my right peripheral vision and called her attention to it immediately. 6 silvery white disc-shaped objects stopped over the neighbor's house. I don't know how long it lasted. It could have been several minutes. And at a certain point, bang, I'm out.
Peter woke up on the ground after losing consciousness, and the disc-shaped objects were gone. But many years later, he learned that his sister Helen's experience went much further. At the time, Helen was 12 years old, and she not only saw the same disc-shaped objects that Peter witnessed, but she also remembered being taken aboard one of the craft.
She said, I saw a blue light shoot out of the bottom of one of these things, and I rose off the ground. Then my memory is I'm inside, and I'm being walked through a curved metal hallway by a number of small beings and one large one who talked to me in my head, the big one. And the next thing I know, I'm on a metal table. I have no clothes on. I'm surrounded by half a dozen or so of these beings and the big one. And then I'm on the ground.
The story Peter told of his sister Helen's encounter was one of the first abduction accounts Bud Hopkins ever documented. Sharing a fascination with this strange phenomenon, the two men began to work together, cataloging the hundreds of other alien abduction accounts Hopkins was receiving.
The first couple of years, there really was no area of UFO abduction research. He was creating it in great part along with a very small handful of other people, approaching the subject as scientifically as he could. He's a real intellectual. He was extremely well-read, insatiably curious. I think there are many backgrounds that are great for being a ufologist, and we think technically first, scientist, psychologist, whatever. Being an artist is valuable. It lets you think out of the box.